Hey everybody, welcome back to my book chat channel. So this is another book review for Harper Canada, and this one is Sisters of the Neversea by Cynthia Smith. This is a middle grade book that was sent to me to give a go, and I gotta say, I think this is the first middle grade book that I have read in a very, very long time, since I was a middle grader. So this was definitely a fun one to get into. Alright, so jumping into the synopsis, and then we will chat more about the story. In this modern take of the popular classic Peter Pan, award-winning author Cynthia Smith brilliantly shifts the focus from the boy who won't grow up to the Native American Lily and English Wendy, stepsisters who must face both dangers and wonders to find their way back to the family they love. Stepsisters Lily and Wendy embark on a high-flying journey of magic, adventure, and courage to a fairy tale island known as Neverland. Side note, I didn't read the synopsis going into this story, so I had no idea I was reading about Peter Pan. And I'll get more into that. Anyway, Lily and Wendy have been best friends since they became sisters, but with their feuding parents planning to spend the summer apart, what will become of their family and their friendship? Little do they know that a mysterious boy has been watching them from the oak tree outside their window. A boy who intends to take them away from home for good to an island of wild animals, merfolk, fairies, and kidnapped children. A boy who calls himself Peter Pan. So, again, I did not read the synopsis going into this. I just kind of jumped in. And it was, I don't know, 30 seconds into the story that they started naming characters, and it dawned on me what I was reading, and then I ended up going back and reading the synopsis just to confirm what I was reading. I've never read a story about Peter Pan. I mean, don't get me wrong, when it comes to my knowledge of Peter Pan, my past history, I guess, runs between the Disney version, Christina Henry's version, Once Upon a Time's version, for those who don't know, that's a TV series, Hook with Robin Williams, and then a really old VHS version that depicted Pan as a female. So I've definitely had a lot of run-ins with Peter Pan, I just have never read it. And in truth, I can say that it's never really been a childhood favorite. I mean, I know of it, I've seen it, and I enjoyed some of the different music parts, and, you know, it was kind of fun as a kid, but ever since I read The Lost Boy by Christina Henry last year with Rambling Readers, I can't really say that Peter Pan has gone from an to I can't say it's my favorite at all. In fact, it wasn't until I came across that book and then the show Once Upon a Time that it really dawned on me that Peter Pan was more of a bad guy and not so much a good guy. Mostly because I've just never really put too much thought into it since I've become a parent myself. You know, the fact that some random person comes in and steals your kids in the middle of the night is not exactly a comforting sensation or experience. So I can't say that I cared very much for Peter Pan, but, you know, because of that, it created a lot of mixed feelings going into the story. But in the end, I decided to give it a go. And I'm really grateful that I did, because it kind of would almost play as a slightly lighter follow-up story to The Lost Boy, because The Lost Boy, side note here, goes into a background history and story of the notorious Captain Hook and the events that unfolded revolving around between him and Peter and how things go there. But this story has a similar vibe to it. I mean, it's a lot less darker because it's a middle grade, so I was curious how that was going to go. Peter Pan is not what I would consider a lighthearted story. It's a bit of a darker one, and the more adult the book is, the darker it seems to get, for obvious reasons. So, but going into the story, I actually liked it because it shed a new light on the character Peter Pan himself and the island. It actually gave a little bit more background history to the island that I have never read before or come across before. It gave some insight as to, you know, Peter Pan himself, and although technically it's not new news or a new concept, that if you go off the movie Hook with Robin Williams, it was shown that Peter Pan himself was a victim of being abducted as an infant and taken off to Neverland by Tinkerbell, or Belle as she's known in this book. But that was brought back into the foreground with this story, how he is also a victim of being a kidnapped child, and really the blame all comes down to Belle. They kind of hint at the fact that fairies have a weakness to young children, and that she wanted a friend, so he got nominated. So I found myself incredibly conflicted between not liking the character himself and then feeling sorry for the person he's become due to being a victim himself. He's made definitely a lot of mistakes and that kinds of things, and like I said, I don't necessarily like the character he become, but I do like the way the story was done. It is a little like some of these other villain retellings of, Cruella and all these other ones, where it kind of puts some perspective as to why Peter Pan is the way that he is, and then it wraps it up in a nice little bow in the end. That was the other thing I really like about the story, is the fact that it concluded the whole thing in a nice way. It wasn't just kids returned home, the end, that's over. It was a little bit more to that. And it was a nice conclusion to everybody, including Belle and Peter Pan. And of course, for those of you who have been following me and listening to my reviews for a while, know that, when it comes to anything of the supernatural or mysticism or anything else like that, I really enjoy the historical side and the background and the story that leads up, the when, the where, and the why. And this story really put more time and effort into developing that. I really enjoyed the historical background story to the island, and just the different things that you wouldn't have known otherwise. The relationship between the humans and the merfolk, and the roles the fairies play, and things that Pan has done, and above and beyond just kidnapping kids. So overall, I am really happy that I went through with reading this story. It was a nice change to a story that I felt didn't really have an ending to it. So really, they made it out to seem like he'll just move on to the next kids after Wendy, and I'm kind of glad that, they changed the route for that story and how it all went down. And of course, this one has a lot more interesting odds and ends to it. There's a fourth child involved. Wendy isn't actually the oldest. So when you're comparing this one to, the Disney movie, for example, where there's only the 3 kids, there's a lot of pieces that don't line up. But it just makes it more interesting and all that more fascinating. So I definitely gave this one a 4 to 5 stars. I thought it was really lively and engaging, and it was the history and just, what's going to happen. It really kept pulling me back. It really kept me engaged with the story, and I found myself really wanting to know more. And for the best part, it was, like I said, it was a really nice, gentle way of concluding the entire story and even giving Pan a proper ending. So yeah, so that is my take and thoughts on Sisters of the Neversea, again by Cynthia Smith. And again, thanks go out to Harper Collins Canada for sending me this one to read and review. And I will be back again soon with another book review. I hope you will have a wonderful week. Happy reading.